Every time I make a bullet journal setup or do one of these plan with me videos, sometimes I come across a theme or setup that I just really don't like, and this video was definitely one of them. Before you click off, it did not end in disaster, but I actually did film this June plan with me twice. The first time I was designing a celestial dragons theme, and I was going to have moons and watercolor and dragons on different planets, and it was actually a really cool concept, and I thought it was a good idea, but as I was filming, in fact, like 5 or 6 hours into filming that video over the course of 2 days, I took a second, stepped back and looked at my spreads and realized that it really just wasn't the vision that I was intending. I don't really want to stick too much on the negative, but I will say that I took a day, took my spreads, redesigned something, and now I have a spread and theme that I am so much more happy with. So I'm very excited to show you guys my June plan with me for this year because I feel like I worked really hard to create a spread and a theme that I'm proud of, and I'm excited to show you guys, and I hope that you guys love it as well. So on that note, the theme that I ended up deciding on is a jungle theme specifically about tigers. Now, I know I'm not the first person in the world to do a jungle theme, and as someone who puts their spreads online, I do try to be original and creative, but I will be completely open and honest and say I took a lot of this inspiration from a June bullet journal theme of Journal Away from a couple years ago. Her spreads always inspire me, and her idea of using tigers and a jungle theme definitely influenced the way that I drew these pages. But I was looking at Pinterest, I found a couple drawings of tigers in different positions, and I actually really enjoy just figuring out their anatomy as I sketched out this particular drawing and the others that you'll see eventually in this setup. Now, one thing I've been loving to do recently in my bullet journal is using all different kinds of mediums on sticker paper and then cutting it out and gluing it into my journal. This may not be for everybody because it does obviously have a second layer of paper, so there is a second bump in the pages if you flip through them, but honestly for me, I love this technique because I love to play around with different things besides water-based markers. For example, alcohol markers, I love. I've talked about this a million times on my channel, and by using sticker paper, they don't bleed through the pages of your bujo. But in this particular video, I decided to pull out my watercolor set from Maylang Watercolor that I've talked about before on this channel as well, but I was just, for some reason, really inspired to do some painting, and I feel like it actually helped make these spreads look super good. If you know anything about me, I usually don't paint in my bullet journal because I feel like it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and even just the task of getting a bowl of water and some paper towel to get ready to paint is just a bore when I have an entire cart full of markers 2 feet from my desk 24/7. So usually I stick with markers when I'm coloring. However, I felt like this particular jungle theme needed a little more texture. I needed a little differentiation in the colors of the leaves and the tiger's skin and the hair on his face. That's even what you call it, hair, fur, I don't know. But this particular watercolor set by Maylang was super helpful because of this watercolor brush that you just keep the water in that second part of the brush and it drips down into the pen, and you can use it just like a marker, except there's a paint palette on the left side. This video is not sponsored or anything, but I do really appreciate using this palette. It makes life so much easier for me while I'm painting, and I do have a discount code with them from a couple weeks ago, so it'll be in the description box if you're interested in checking out this watercolor set. Again, non-sponsored, but it's super helpful. Now, because I did film this video twice, I spent days and days working on this video, so I was definitely committed to making this last attempt like super clean and pristine. Like I said, I took a couple hours to really figure out the anatomy of tigers as I was drawing and looking at references to create this cover page, and I love the way it looks like the tiger is like prowling towards you and it's in your face and it's intimidating and it's almost jumping out of the page, which I kind of love because when I put it into my bullet journal, it'll make everything pop. Now, as a bullet journaling YouTuber, I always have to be a little bit ahead. Like, for example, I filmed this video on May 20th and 21st because I know I had to get the video out early enough for you guys to watch it and then possibly recreate it before June even starts. By the way, if you do recreate any of my themes, oh my gosh, I love you so much! And definitely tag me on Instagram if you post it because I would love to see your creations. But because I was working so far ahead, I was, of course, planning out my themes, but I was planning out the Celestial Dragons theme. And so when it came time to do this particular theme, I didn't really think of the detailed specifics besides the drawing. So like the colors I was using and the technique I was using, like I didn't really put too much effort into that. I just kind of wung it, honestly. winged it, wung it. Is that the right word? I hope so. So the color palette this month isn't really mind-boggling. It's nothing new. You know, you have an orange and brown tiger, green leaves, pink flowers. Like it's pretty simple, but I do like how saturated this theme is because I want it to be like a dark jungle, but I don't want it to be muted toned. Like it's a summer theme. It's June. It's my birthday month. Like I want these things to pop off the page. So although sometimes I do like a little dull and just vintage muted colors on my bullet journal, this is not the month for that. So I feel like by first using watercolors to build up that saturation, to build up that texture, and using the water to of course blend into the wider parts of the tiger's face and feet, etc., was a good first step. And then I could use alcohol markers or even occasionally water-based markers to blend out with water and just add even more depth and even more color into each of these elements. I finalized everything with a little white gel pen to add sparkles everywhere, because if you know me, you know that I think a white gel pen can fix literally any theme ever. I put sparkles in like every page that I do, so I had to do that. And now it's time to finally glue this picture right into my June cover page. Like I love how easy that is. Like I can work super long on sticker paper and then I just peel off the back and boom, pop it right into the journal. And if for some reason I made a mistake and I really wanted to start over and redraw it, I wouldn't have to waste any bullet journal pages unless I have a new sheet of sticker paper, redraw it, and then I can cut it out swiftly and paste it right into my journal. Now about this calendar on the left, I of course started this video by making the calendar, but I didn't really talk about it. So I'm doing a one-page calendar for June because, to be honest, it's my first month of summer. I just graduated this past week. Whoop woo! And I'm super excited to just have a very chill first month of summer before I have to think about college movement and stuff. So I'm not having many things planned. I have some vacations planned, but that doesn't mean that I have a lot to put in the calendar because I'll just put a line that says vacation for this week, and I'm not like very many individual events and to-dos I have to get done. So all that to say, I don't really need much calendar space, but I think this is a good way to tie in the elements from the right with a couple leaves, that black border. It's simple, it's functional, it's useful, and with a couple sparkles that are just as functional and useful in my personal opinion, we can move on to the next couple spreads. If you are bored of looking at me color on sticker paper instead of actually writing in my bullet journal, guess what, we're doing it again. Because I have two more tigers that I want to draw to put into these next couple of spreads. So the first one I'm inking right here is a tiger that's going to be crawling on a branch, and it is oddly angled and it looks a little funny, but I think it's because the branch was almost tilted upwards. I couldn't find an exact reference picture for this particular position that the tiger's in, so I just found a tiger walking and then angled it and then put it on an angled branch. So it may not be completely correct, but I think the idea still gets there, and I'm also going to add a lot more details once I put it into the journal page, so you'll see that in a little bit. The second tiger over here, and I turned it on the side so I could save paper because I go through a lot of the sticker paper in this video, but it is just a sitting tiger kind of looking back over his shoulder at you, and it is rather small because I'm just going to be putting this one in the corner of a spread. But as you'll see, I have this box on the side and I'm gonna color in completely black like I did on the cover page because I recently have found that I love to add a lot of contrast into my spreads. In March of this year, I did black backgrounds behind my ballerinas in that particular theme. In May, a couple of weeks ago, I added a lot of black to contrast from my Alice in Wonderland theme since there was so much color and texture going on. I felt like black was a good way to add some balance. And in this particular theme, I feel like you could still do it without any black. Like as you see on the drawing right here, it still looks good with all the different colors, but for some reason, adding that black just makes it pop. And it matches, of course, with the brownish black stripes on the tiger's back, and overall, it just adds so much more oomph, you know, to the spread. So it's been one of my favorite things recently, and I unfortunately don't see myself stopping soon, even though it does take up so much ink to color in the background of a picture like this. But you know what? It's worth it for the aesthetics. However, because I don't really have a black watercolor that's super dark, I mean, watercolor is something that you obviously have to build up over time, I did use a dark alcohol marker just to ink around the main sections, and then I went in with a Tombow Fudenosuke to get into those little bitty crevices between the tails and leaves and stuff on this particular picture because unfortunately my alcohol marker would have been a little too thick. So on this last tiger, I'll talk about my process a little bit in painting because I do not paint very often, so I was winging it just a little bit. But I take this light orangey brown and just kind of highlight the most prominently orange parts of the tiger, so specifically the top of the legs and the bottom of the tail, and of course along his back and head. Especially on his head, you have to watch and make sure that there are white spots around the eyes and around his muzzle, if that's what you call it, because those are usually white on at least the tiger pictures that I was seeing. Then I added a little more red because I felt like it was a darker color, so it would add some shadow, but B, it would add a little more reddish tone rather than a yellowish tone to the orange on this tiger. And then I went in with a brown marker. This one is from the Ahuhu sets, which I also have an affiliate link with down below. And I colored in the stripes because it was so much easier to use a fine pen than to use the watercolor brush, just in personal opinion. And then I could go in with the details, of course, with the branch and the leaves and all that, just using watercolor mostly. So now we are finally back in my bullet journal. This video is actually going by a lot faster than I thought it would, and we are doing a new spread here on the right that I haven't done in my bullet journal yet. Any at all. So recently I've been very interested in tracking my health. I don't want to get into too many specifics here, but you know, I just have a couple things that I want to look into and make sure that I'm tracking throughout the month, and I felt like this was a good way to do it. So I do have period trackers that I keep in my bullet journal, and I put them at the beginning setup of each journal, which is linked on my channel if you haven't seen how I set up this bullet journal. But I am going to be switching into a new journal in the next couple weeks for the second half of the year, so look out for that video coming soon. But this spread on the right is just a place for me to have a calendar where I'm going to track different symptoms, and then I'll have 30 boxes also in rows where I can write down any specific things that I wanted to look at for that particular day. We can come back to that one in a second, but over here I'm also going to be doing the left spread, which is going to be my goals and brain dump page, because I am going to be going on a couple trips this month, but in between them I have a couple projects that I want to work on, and I feel like this would be a great place for me to just dump all of my main thoughts. Now, I had an idea of creating a black background because, like I said, I want a lot of contrast, but because there was another picture on the back side of this page, like it was the cover page, I didn't want to use an alcohol marker, and I felt like watercolor would be too wet and water-based markers would be not saturated enough and too streaky. So I figured I'll just take a page of black paper from my black sketchbook and I'll just trace all the shapes and cut it out to make a border. And honestly, by doing this process, I kind of reminded myself how so much math is involved in bullet journaling. Like, it doesn't really have to be, but in this section I was pulling out rulers and I was measuring curves and I was sticking and gluing, and thank goodness I actually successfully did this on camera because I probably would have messed it up. But no, I got everything in place, and it does hang off the edge a little bit, but just use a couple scissors, you know, cut that off. And now I have a dark border that almost like closes in the spread, but also creates such great contrast between the left and the right and matches the cover page because there's a lot of black in this page. So I love this idea. I thought it was surprisingly successful. I kind of shocked myself. And just to match at the bottom, as you'll see, I'm going to go in between the branches on the tiger and add some black. So obviously the tiger is on sticker paper, which is on top of the black paper, which is on top of the bullet journaling paper, but I wanted it to seem like there were cutouts in the sticker paper to see through to the black border. So instead of going through all that trouble and creating little cutouts in that little sticker paper, I just used a black marker to create little blobs to make it look like there were cutouts. And I feel like this was a much easier way to get the same effect, and you can't even tell it from far away. Coming back to the health tracker, I'm just finishing up a couple things. As you'll see, there are 4 colored boxes under the little calendar box right there, and these are going to be 4 different symptoms that I'm going to be tracking over the next month. So if I ever find that symptom, I'll just color in the particular box of the calendar with that color. Similar to a habit tracker, but just a little more specific, I think. And of course, I'll write in those particular symptoms after I finish filming. And then in the boxes, I'm going to number 1 through 30 because, again, I'll just put in those boxes anything specific that happened that day that I want to keep in mind. And I'm hoping to keep this spread up. I'm not sure how successful it's going to be because, like I said, it's the first time I've ever used this spread, and I did design it just a couple days ago. So I don't know how effective it's going to be for my system, but I do want to just introduce it, see how it works, and I'll definitely want to keep up with a health tracker in the next couple months just to check any patterns or things I need to keep up with in my journal and rather than on my phone. So I'll keep y'all updated just to see if this spread works, and if you want to recreate it, definitely go right ahead. Let me know if it works for you because, of course, every spread works differently for different people depending on your needs, but I'm really hoping this will be a good productive spread for me to implement into my bullet journaling system for the next couple months. So after adding a leaf and a couple flowers just to tie in the theme from the other page, let's move into this next spread in my bullet journaling setup where I'm going to be sticking in this last tiger drawing. So like I mentioned earlier, it is a slightly smaller drawing, but that's because I just wanted to fit in this little corner because this spread is going to be chock full with too many other things to worry about than a tiger picture. At the top here, we have a habit tracker, and I'm actually going to be tracking 6 habits this month. I'm pretty sure last month I did 8, but because I have a health tracker to be tracking things, I don't think I need quite so many habits since a couple of them were health related. So I'll be cutting those out, and I only need 6 for this month. But I've actually been kind of proud of myself by using a habit tracker. Occasionally, I will go into months where I only need like 3 or 4, but recently I've been keeping up with about 6 to 8 tracking things every day, and I've been pretty good, Go self-discipline. Then in the bottom left, I have a gratitude log where I can write something I'm thankful for every day. This is just a really simple practice that I love to keep up with, just, for my own mental health. And then on the right bottom, I have an expenses tracker for me to take care of my money because, like I said, I am going to college in a few months and I need to make sure that I'm going to be in a great place for that. So this technique that I'm doing right here might be a little weird to look at. I'm basically coloring the main spots of each habit tracker label on the left hand side with a Tombow Fudenosuke soft tip because I find that when I use a white gel pen to write over black marker, it shows up the best on Tombow Fudenosuke markers. However, that one was running out of ink, so I ended up pulling out a Tombow dual brush pen in black to just color in the rest of that particular box. However, the white gel pen would sink into that color, but it's not going to touch it because I'm only going to be writing in the middle of the boxes, if that makes any sense. So that was just a good way to not waste too much ink, but still have the white gel pen show up on anything that I'm writing on top of. Super random and off-topic tangent, but I actually had a nightmare a couple weeks ago about a tiger chasing me and killing me, and it has been a reoccurring dream. So I'm honestly super proud of myself because if anything, if this theme was ugly and terrible, at least I can say that I conquered my subconscious fear of being eaten by a tiger by drawing them. So screw you, dreams. Anyway, so with that said, this is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed and got some good inspiration. As always, subscribe below because I post bullet journaling videos every week, and follow all my social media in the description box. Leave a comment to let me know what your bullet journal theme for this month is. I'm very curious to know. And if you're interested in checking out a new video, here is one about growing a bujo Instagram on the screen. Have an amazing week, and I will see you in the next one. Toodles!